Chad's been steady. Yep, he really has. I think Coach Bennett would tell you that he's been the I think the consistency of helping them improve back there, getting the calls made, being the quarterback of that bunch, and he's just a calm, steady force back there for us, and I think he's done a solid job. Doesn't say much at all. He says yes, sir, to me. That's about it. Don't have many, and I talked to him a little bit, but he didn't say a whole lot. But he's he's from a place where I used to be the head football coach, and so he's got those guys kind of have a little. I have a special relationship with those guys. So, but no, he's been steady and been very consistent and been, I think, a big reason why we've made great improvements there. Well, I guess got to do a better job of coaching and teaching. I think the reason why we've been so good there is because we work hard at educating our players. It's just like there's been, like somebody asked me earlier, there's controversy about targeting. A lot of people don't like that. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've got a son that plays football. I think it's a good rule. I want my son to be safe, and so the safety of the players is most important. And I do think if you look that, it's like whatever the rules are, we go by them. It doesn't matter what the rules are, right? If you want to change the rules, then go through the process to do that. But we go by whatever rules they are. We've had 2 targeting fouls in 5.5 years. I bet there's not very many people who can say that. They review them, and sometimes they say they're not targeting, and sometimes they say they do. I think for the most part, I think they've gotten them right. The one that we had the other night was very difficult. It was a bang deal, and it was. And I don't think I know our guys. He was trying to lower the target, put his head to the side, but it was just, those things happen. But we need to. I think penalties. And teaching the game. That's why I never say anything about that, because sometimes the human side of me, I don't agree with this, agree with that. It don't matter what I agree with. The fact of the matter, we had 10 penalties. Period. No matter what I think. So how can you avoid that? Education. I mean, we need to go back and look at those things. Well, we had 12 guys on the field one time. Well, that's pretty easy to fix that. But we're a disciplined team. It wasn't. There were a lot of penalties in the games on both sides, and some of the penalties were kind of unique situations that don't come up a lot. So education is how you do that. I mean, there's a reason. You look at the history of that. When my first year, I think it was almost 1,000 yards difference. Well, so is it the officials or is it coaching? And I just believe that we should coach and teach our players to play by the rules. Also, I don't like negative plays, and that was a factor and something that we've addressed. And that's the first thing I do every Sunday is address how many penalties, go through them, look at them, and make sure we educate our players on that. But on the same hand, I think I think the rules are important, and safety is the number one thing I think with our players. Mm-hmm. Is that like your philosophy, or is that just a lot of people talk about that. Yeah. Do you guys strive to that sort of thing? I mean, obviously everybody's trying to stay ahead of the curve. I'm glad you asked that question, because that's what I talked about today with the team, and I usually don't share with y'all what I say to the team, but I act like I do, but I usually don't. November is what I talked to him about today. November, like for instance, I go back to 2013. I think we're undefeated in November. Went to championship. It's the only time we've been undefeated in November. You go to 14. We lose the last 2. Win either one of those, you go to the championship game again. I told our kids about 2005 today. We lost a game. Man, it was like, we're eliminated. Everybody's like, they're out. The team that we're competing with has to lose 3 of the next 4. We have to win out. And we went out, and they lost 3 of the next 4. We played Central Florida and beat them for the championship in '05. You say, well, whatever. I mean, and there's a lot of years. But here's the bottom line: November is for champions. Most people self-select out. It's how bad you want it. There's lots of wear and tear. That's where the physicality of the game. That's why you see those. But you look around college football now. I don't know that we can say today's modern college football is like it was 10 years ago. Maybe it's me, but I don't remember that much people with all the upsets. I mean, it used to be much more consistent. Am I right on that? So the trends are the parity in college football, and I think it has a lot to do with the mental mindset. And so that's why I preach these things. The way you walk around this facility, there are 4 values of our program are everywhere. And I talked to our players today. I said, you make a decision how you're going to finish in November, because any team in the Pac-12 can beat the other one. It's just the way it is. You look and see, try to look and go, okay, Washington State beat USC, and then let's see, Cal beat Washington. You see what I'm saying? I mean, there's no trend, or it's what will make teams be consistent. I personally believe it's their mental maturity and it's their mental mindset. It has to do with your values. It's just like life is the same way. If you don't have focus in your life, and you're not grounded by what you believe in, and you don't have investment, you're going to give up pretty easily. Well, there's just so many. It seems like to me there's just there's a lot of players, and each team can only sign 25, and so that's why it's so important you have a definitive plan for your that's unique to your school. Does that make sense? And you have a unique identity to what you're doing. So I think it's personnel that makes it that way. It's so much. I think recruiting's dramatically changed in the last 25 years, a lot in the last 5 years. But just there's kids that if you're a player, there's not very many sleepers anymore. People it's just so well. We know about them most of the time they're 9th or 10th grade. So personnel, I think the rules, where you can only have so many. I think. It's just, and then I think one of the things that's a factor too, that I watch every year, is early commitments. So you'll get early commitments, and you'll go, and then you'll get full, and then you're looking at film going like, man, kids dramatically improve their senior year, but you don't have a spot for them. And there's also the other side of that, the reverse side of that. So I think it's all driven by personnel and just the modern game, because I think recruiting is really, really, really different than it was 5 years ago. So, and the coaching. There's great coaches and how coaches are developed and just how you can learn. And, back when I was first coaching, man, it was hard there wasn't as much accessibility. You can get on you can get it. I think I got on the other day and I Googled. You can find every one of my defensive playbooks online. You know what I'm saying? I'm going, how'd that get on there? You can in the summer I do that. I'll Google a team, and you pull it up and you'll see their stuff. Whether it be the air raid or the spread no huddle, or you can get all the information. And there just wasn't that kind of information readily available. So games just progressed, and but it still comes down to heart. Still comes down to character. It still comes down to, in November, how bad do you want it? And let me tell you this, it ain't an emotional decision you decide in November. You better have invested. You better have laid a strong foundation. And so that's when you find out what you're made of. And so, I look at those years. I've had teams that have, that have been undefeated in November, and then we've had some that should have. We were picked every game to win, and we didn't. We went 2-2 instead of 4-0. So that just depends on there's a lot of factors when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds. And it's a fun business.
So think about that Oregon State.
Can you tell? Yeah, I do. Yeah, that was we were winning at halftime.
You said that November is for champions. It was an exciting October. Do you think that this loss is going to be the biggest motivation for them to go out and go 4-0 in November?
I hope so. I just think that the way we train them is different than that. You don't get too high, don't get too low. You just got to go. You just get so many opportunities, and I don't know. I think our guys. I don't know. I'd be surprised if they don't do really well because guys like Demario Richards, Tayshawn Smallwood, DJ Calhoun. This is it, man. I walked up to them today, every one of them, and I said, "Hey, this is your last November. This is your last 4 weeks. This is your last 12 days of practice." So I think they'll give me everything they've got. They got a lot invested.
How much of an influence have they had on the team?
Oh, I think tremendous. I think the best play. It's just like I said that today too. I said, you could have every second and third team guy go out and have the best practice of their life every day, and it wouldn't impact the team. It maybe a little bit, and they need to do that. But it's the best players that determine it. How you're going to practice, and sometimes that's the biggest challenge, is because a lot of times entitlement and things like that slip in, and guys know kind of, especially guys that are really, really talented. They have to set the standard when it comes to the values of our program and our work ethic. So.
How much do you mention the 13-14
I talk about my 03, 05. I talk to them. I just give different examples. It just, but to try to show them it can be done. On the same hand, we don't talk about like, hey, we can still win this thing. We don't do that. You know what? All we can do is control one thing. That's go out and figure out a way to beat a really good Colorado team. And that's what we have to do. And then you do that, and you just keep pounding. If you go 4-0 in November, you got a chance. So that's what you can control. Well, let me tell you, Lindsey is a guy that I absolutely love watching him run. He's a guy that, in this conference, if you ask me going through the games we've been through to this point, the running backs in this league it might be the best. There's been some pretty good years in the years I've been here, but this might be the best bunch of running backs as far as the volume, top to bottom, and the diversity of their talents. Obviously, kid at Stanford and one at USC are much talked about. Lindsey is as complete of a back, heart, determination. I don't even know him, and I can tell you that about him. I think he's the pulse of their team. He is no doubt the leader, and he embodies everything you want in a running back. He's tough. He's multi-talented as far as being able to be a receiver, run inside, run outside, and he's not very big. And I mean, he will flat bring it. And then you watch the guy when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And probably, I'd say that about him. He's as impressive as anybody else with the ball in his hand, but what he does when he doesn't have the ball in his hand is the most impressive. He's the most impressive back that we've played against, and how he blocks and what he does. He's just a selfless player. So he's a guy that, I watch a lot of film, and he jumps off the screen at me because he's the kind of player that I like how he does it. Quarterback. I didn't answer the quarterback deal. The quarterback is I think very similar. The quarterback last year. I mean, a great runner. He's a guy you can't ignore in the run game. He is a gunslinger. He is hard to bring down in the pocket. You got to keep him corralled. He can really hurt you scrambling, extending plays, and he got a powerful arm. I mean, a guy can throw the ball, and their whole deal. Our whole deal in the passing game is to keep in front of us. Don't give me cheap things over the top. They've got three of these receivers are as fast as anybody we've played against. they can stretch the field on you. So that's going to be for us is to control the vertical game, keep it in front of us, keep the quarterback corralled, and obviously first and foremost you have to stop Lindsey, and you have to keep him in check. So that's kind of the formula.